I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to have a moment of silence, please. Okay, I want to welcome everybody here and everybody that's watching on the Facebook or video or other items that you can get to watch this meeting. We'll do a roll call right now. I'm going to start with Mr. Culberson.
Here.
Vicki Cause is out. She's at another meeting. M. Smith here. Doug?
Here.
And Mike Seaver. Good. Okay, next item is public comment. I think we've got Kevin Kern. Is Kevin here? Okay.
Let me ask.
Okay, yeah.
I don't see him.
Yeah, he came in Monday. I don't see him. He's not. Okay. Then we'll move right along. There's no other comments. The names are on here. So we'll go to administrative business. The first one there is update from the public health officer. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Here to provide a update to you. I'm going to make it pretty brief. I got to get down. Today is clinic day, vaccine day, so I need to get down to the Riverfront Community Center to help out with that. Real quick, overview as of yesterday and the numbers that we put out, just to bring you up to speed. There's 25 positive cases that the health department is monitoring at this time in our community. We've watched over the last several months on a downward trend that our positive percentage has dropped, our number of cases, and it has put all of our gating criteria, if you will, into the green, which is why I believe we've seen a lot of the masks and other restrictions kind of starting to be lifted in other areas and surrounding areas in ours. So currently, as of today, there are 3 currently in the hospital. So those are the numbers that I'm still monitoring of how our community is doing. And then the question that it continues to be brought up is on that positive percentage, at least to me, and I'm sure you get these questions as well. How is testing and is testing full? We have over the last 6 weeks maintained about that 700 average on testing people per week. So that is a pretty solid number for us then to monitor that out in our positive percentage. And that positive percentage is still down in that 2%. So I think we're doing well in that regard. CDC obviously still in public indoor places is still recommending masks, and that is still our recommendation out to people. COVID is still here. We're still gaining cases on a daily basis. So as we release cases are still coming in. COVID's still around. Believe it or not, it's been over 419 days that we've been engaged in COVID-19. So the health department, when you put it into that perspective, it's been a while. It's been quite the year for the health department. In vaccine administration, not to say that we've knocked it out of the park, but I think we've done a very good job of vaccine administration in our community for what we were given. As we received it, we were given it. As we were requesting more, we continued to give it. And I do want to give the kudos that we were able to give over 30,000 doses out. And I'm going to tell you, we've done that with a crew of 27 people. So that's pretty phenomenal when you look at some of the other areas that are using and upwards of hundreds of people to try to give 1,000 doses. We're knocking that out of the park with 27 people. In that 27 people, we have had 7 volunteers that have come in, have been working right alongside us, drawing doses, nursing, that have been vaccinating down there, or just helping with lines and ancillary type stuff. So kudos to those individuals. I think when we get to a point that we're no longer needing or such, I will ask that we bring them in and at least acknowledge them at some point for the amount of time that they've given to the vaccine clinic. In the vaccine clinics, we at the beginning of them, we were doing them twice a week. We rolled them back to once a week. And today will be the last clinic that we're going to do down at the Riverfront Community Center, just because of the amount of uptick in the amount of individuals that are coming, the need for that space and the utilization of that amount of people, and the logistics there is no longer needed. So next week we're going to transition back to the health department, and we'll be doing those additional clinics back at the health department until the need to, if the need ever arises, we're going to leave it set up, and if we have to, we can immediately transition back to the riverfront.
Good to know. Okay.
So we will be moving back. That will also allow the health department to get back to running some of the other clinics that by having the staff there and not just waiting down at the riverfront for people to come in for vaccines. So it'll allow us to get back to doing some of our others and continue monitoring cases and caseloads. That's really kind of the brief I wanted to give everyone. Any questions that I can answer from the board?
Mike?
Just a couple questions. On the vaccines, they're approved for conditionally approved for usage. Any time frame that you've heard of when the FDA will make those conditional approvals become full approvals?
When they're going to transition out of the emergency use authorizations, I have not. I don't have that exact answer yet. No.
Okay. The other thing is we're in the green, and but we're still recommending masks indoors. When I'm getting some calls from parents of kids that are in school wanting to know when the recommendation will be modified so that they don't have to wear masks at school. How low will the number have to go, or will you be watching the CDC?
The CDC is still making those recommendations. They're the ones that are the authorization and the authority on making recommendations in that. Also, we're 3 weeks from school being out, and the last thing we need is if we have a case. Right now, schools are operating well, and we're not having to exclude because they're in masks. If we take masks out, then you're going to exclude kids from finals and things of that nature because of the positive and quarantines that are going to be needed when those happen. So I've met with superintendents and such. They were all pretty well on board with what CDC guidelines are and moving forward with keeping the masks on, especially in the schools, because again, schools are still, they're sitting within 3 feet of each other. They cannot spread out. They can't socially distance a lot of the schools. They brought them all back. So one of the issues is you have a positive, you're going to go back, and we're going to go back to the early days when you have a positive. You're going to exclude many students out, as opposed to right now, we augmented that with the 3-foot rule, mask to mask, and we're not excluding. So
what I'm hearing more not about this year, but more people are talking about the next
I can't
school
even
year.
tell you what August is going to look like. We don't know even what vaccine is going to look like. Pfizer has put into the FDA for 11 through 15, excuse me, to try to get vaccine approved for that age group. They're done with their clinical trials. So we'll know more hopefully by the end of May on what the summer is going to look like for vaccine of children. And that will change what potentially next year will look like.
Well, anyway, I think a lot of parents are concerned that they don't want that to continue.
Well, that's not your decision nor my decision. The CDC gets to make that decision, unfortunately, on the recommendations.
Well, according to the law here in Kansas now, the individual school districts get to make their decision.
Correct.
So, thanks. And I do appreciate everything you've done. In fact, I've heard great reports on your vaccination clinics. A lot of people are saying how well they've been run. So appreciate it.
Doug, you have anything?
Mr. Miller, you said you were going to not use the riverfront. You're going to have the clinics out at the health farm. Are they going to require an appointment, or are you'll just hold a clinic and it'll be walking?
We will hold a clinic through time, just like we did early on when we had very limited. We did appointments and such, but we're getting to a point where there's low enough uptick, and we know the process. We've been doing it long enough. We can get people in and out very quickly. We'll just have an open time frame that those that need their secondary dose or they need their first dose will be able to walk in during this time to this time.
Okay, and then this will be the last evening clinic today?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for the extended hour. Today is 10 to 8.
Okay.
Jeff?
I just wanted to add, so that Jamie knows, I've got dozens of calls of how good of a job you guys
Absolutely.
did at the riverfront. So we don't get a whole lot of good calls.
Right.
So.
So mainly it was the not waiting longer after you got your shot to make sure you didn't have a reaction than it took to get through the.
They were all very impressed on how it was
And
operated.
again, it wasn't just like I want to say, it wasn't just the health department as volunteers, but also I want to give kudos to EMS. We've had an ambulance there every time, so if there was any sort of reaction or anything, or someone had some nervousness or needed to be monitored, we had that readily available as well at every one of those clinics. So all around, I'm going to tell you that Leavenworth County did a fantastic job with the vaccine clinic and really stepping up to the plate for those.
Jamie, I have to echo what everybody's been saying. I had the opportunity to have you poke me. Thank you. You did a good job. The second time around, I think they wanted to use a yard guard on me. I'm glad you stopped that. But the bottom line was the people that I've talked to also, how smooth and such a short staff and the volunteers to get in and get out like that. I mean, you can go in any day and see how smooth that was for. So if there are other counties that are looking for a model to how to run something, I think you don't have to look too far past Leavenworth County to see how this is done. Hopefully we won't be doing this for another 100 years, but my hat's off to you and your crew. Please pass it on to them because I really appreciate what they did. We thank you for coming out.
All right.
Hey, Jamie, one quick question.
Go ahead.
How many first vaccines did you give last week?
100 right around 100-ish.
Right, it was in the 100 range, and I think that was important to understand. That's why they're moving it back to the health offices. It's really the most of your vaccines you're giving right now are the second doses. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. The predominant is second dose. So that's as we're transitioning out for what we give today was what a clinic was 4 weeks ago. So we're giving those second doses today, plus whoever walks in today for their first dose. So in 4 weeks from now, if I only had 50 that walked in today, I only have to give 50 shots in 4 weeks from now.
Right.
So that's why we're transitioning out. There's no reason to basically shut down the health department to go up here for a day when we can do other things waiting for those
What you're
people to
doing
come in.
makes sense. Very good. Okay, anything else for him, Mark?
I just have one quick question. I have this question. Is there a state database when somebody gets a vaccination that their name is entered into?
Yes, it's called WebIZ, and that's the Kansas state that we have to enter that in. Pharmacies have to. Federal does not have to report into the state, so that's where some of our numbers here in Leavenworth County from the VA or Fort Leavenworth, they don't necessarily have to report those numbers into the state WebIZ. So again, some of those numbers that are not being reported in are going to show us as maybe a little bit as a deficit compared to probably where we're truly at in percentage of people vaccinated.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Mark, you have anything for the group?
I did want to follow up on something from last week. Commissioners, you'd asked me to get a little more information from Core Civic on the operation of the facility out there. So I did follow up with the questions that were given to me. And the number one question was, is there money over and above what the operational costs are that the county may be able to benefit from? And in the conversation with Core Civic, they said realistically it's somewhere between probably 3 and 6% of the total contract, which would equate to somewhere between $1 million to $2 million. That would be, I think the 2 million is on the very far upside.
It is.
The most, probably more realistic is somewhere between the 1 and 2 million, maybe like 1.5. So I wanted to pass that on to the commissioners. I also asked the question about why us, why didn't they run this through the state instead of coming to the county, given their relationships with the county. And really it comes down to the timeline and the bureaucracy that they would have to go through at the state level. They felt they weren't sure they had enough time to get that done, so they came to the county. And they do work with numerous counties around the nation, so that's another reason why they felt that the county would be a good starting point. So just wanted to pass that along. I don't know if that makes any difference on us going forward or what the board wants to do after that.
Well, thank you, Mark. I spoke to Damien yesterday, the CEO of it, and Mark's absolutely right. 2 would be the high side, 2 million. I think if y'all are comfortable, I'd sure like to give some direction today. If you're not, that's fine. We can wait. But I know the number was one of the first things, and I didn't want the CORSIVIC to have to wait much longer if we're not going to go forward, or if we are, give them something. So what's the pleasure of the commissioners? Yes, Mike?
Just a question for county councilor. Do we have any way of determining or knowing or seeing in similar situations potential liability numbers as far as how many lawsuits they typically get and how much the recovery amounts are? Any way of us to actually have a firm number?
Well, Commissioner, there is a means to do that. My suggestion would require contacting each jurisdiction that CORSIVIC has a facility in and possibly taking a statistical average of that on a nationwide basis. Or we could simply look at the current filings in federal and or state court regarding the local CORSIVIC facility. That might provide you with a number. However, realistically, the issue is what is the potential liability to Leavenworth County coming out of that facility. And I would just have to tell you, it's any number that I were to give you or any outside agency were to give you, I think would be speculative. The real issue is that the potential liability is open-ended because it depends on the number of inmates, the number of employees, the number of incidents between those two groups, inmate-on-inmate violence, allegations of civil rights violations, allegations of allowing, they recently had cases where they allowed U.S. prosecutors illegal access to inmate-attorney communications. I don't think that would be a problem with the county, so I think that can be discounted, but it is a substantial factor. Unfortunately, I have to tell you it's somewhat unknown, but if you were to build a statistical model, I would suggest that unknown be given significant weight.
One other thing, too, Mike, I was talking to Damien that's kind of interesting. Leavenworth County is probably one of the smallest in the area. The other counties that are having a look at this are large ones, and they have the large facility, so they can exchange and work together. Our facility is what it is. It's Leavenworth County. It doesn't mean I wouldn't like to, and I'm not saying we won't, but wouldn't like to have them here, but it's just not set up right now. And one of the main things I was concerned about is the question you just asked, Mike. I'm really concerned about putting the county out there left holding the bag. So that's my question. Just wanted to share that with you.
I don't see any way we can do this. I just don't see there's any way we can. This is not what we're about.
Yeah.
I think after all things considered, the liability is the issue.
Yep.
Is it worth the liability? And I don't think for a couple percent, I don't think it's going to work out. If we were talking 50%,
Yeah.
then maybe.
And that's what we were trying to get the answer. That's why I appreciate you, Mark, getting that for us. With that being said, do you need a motion or anything on this, Mark, or David?
Well, I would like direction from the board to either notify CORSIVIC that we're no longer interested or to notify CORSIVIC that we want to continue on. I would suggest that the sooner that we make a firm decision for them, the better.
Somebody want to make a motion on that?
Because they're going to need as much time as possible to get this worked out, so I don't want them wasting any time.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we authorize the county administrator to notify Core Civic that the county is not interested in taking over that facility.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any more discussion on it?
I
ahead, Mike.
just will say this, and this is for folks in Leavenworth County. It's our largest
Yeah.
Our
No,
largest
property
taxpayer in the
taxpayer. It's 175 jobs, and elections have consequences.
We're not the ones that made the executive order.
That's your president, Mr. Biden.
And I think say that this is not taken easily, because whenever you got to take a job away, something like that. But I think overall the commissioners look at this as an issue that we're responsible for what happens to the county. And I personally, I hate to see it. I have to go that way because I was in law enforcement for 20 years, and I hate to see it do that. I'm hoping they can come up with another solution, but I think it's the right thing to do to have the vote today so they can at least go the direction or whatever direction they think they need to go. So with that being said, if there's no other discussion, I'll call roll. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 Okay. Mark, you have your marching orders on that.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mark?
Nothing under public or administrative business. Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to recognize today is Anna Mary Landauer's 103rd birthday today. We signed the card last week. I delivered it to the city council meeting last week, and you notice she got her picture on the paper, in the front page of the paper with the mayor. And they had a proclamation that May 5th is Anna Mary Landauer Day in Basler, and it's just amazing. She's an amazing person to talk to as far as the history of everything.
Well,
Just want to recognize her on her 103rd birthday today.
And happy birthday. That's fantastic. Especially I saw some of the reasons she felt she gave for living what she had living a long life.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you, Doug. If there's get the consent agenda approval, unless there's something we need to pull from it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion on it? Not. I'll call the roll. Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
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 It passes. Okay, we're going to formal board action. Come on up, Crystal.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the hot seat.
It's a little warm from Jamie. Commissioners, I have before you a request to approve Resolution 2021-12. The applicant is requesting a special use permit for a mechanic shop to repair heavy equipment. He wants to utilize an existing structure to repair semi-trucks and grain trailers. He estimates an average of 2 customer trips per week. The applicant repairs large vehicles, including semi-trucks, agricultural equipment, grain trailers. The vehicles and trailers weigh between 10 and 17,000 pounds. These vehicles access the property via Gatewood Street, which is an unpaved neighborhood street. He is requesting 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for his hours of operation. Public Works does recommend that all traffic to the business be routed only from K92 to 175th Street onto Gatewood in order to limit traffic on routes not designated for heavy vehicles. The Kansas Department of Transportation provided no further comment on a required route for traffic. The Planning Commission did recommend approval 8-0 of this. Mr. Polkimus is here and will answer any questions that you may have.
Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody else? Let's see. I visited the site yesterday. I didn't go on the property because the shop you can't see it from the road. It's back in the woods.
Yeah, you have to go into the
Right,
subdivision.
right. So, yeah, and it's got a huge cul-de-sac on the end of that road, of course. It said there shall be no unregistered vehicles on the property. I mean, how many unregistered vehicles can just a resident have?
2.
2. So why would we not allow them to have at least 2 unregistered vehicles?
No unregistered vehicles for the business.
Oh.
Is the intention of that, not for Mr. Polkimus's personal.
Okay.
If he were to have, a car or something.
Well, if somebody bought a vehicle and wanted him to check it out before it's not registered,
Commissioner, I think that would fall outside of the scope of the special use permit and not be considered a violation.
Okay. The place looks good, to me.
Mike?
I think, and I think the county residents and the farmer, the agriculture community needs businesses like this out in the county.
Mike, you got anything?
The businesses that are flourishing in Leavenworth County are small businesses, and that's what we need to encourage.
Jeff?
I don't have anything special.
Oh, I had one more.
Go ahead.
Signage. He is back off the beaten path, I will say. And does the applicant would like to have signage, or is it just something that we wouldn't allow?
He indicated that he was not requesting any signage. If he wanted to have a sign, he's allowed to have a sign on his property. He would need to get a sign permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And how big a deal is it to get a sign permit? That's separate? It's not a big deal? Okay.
Okay. Well, there's no more discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
There he is.
Vicky's not here, so
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve special use permit for operation of.
Oh, I had one more thing before you make your motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Doug.
You're requesting the applicant to put in a concrete floor. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner. The shop is currently unfinished. He is putting in a concrete floor.
Okay, so we're asking them to put in a significant investment.
He had already planned on doing that, but
Okay.
before
Well,
it
I just-
begins operating, yes, we would like.
Typically, when somebody puts in a significant investment, we was going 10 years, so I didn't know if that's something the board would like to see.
That's what I was going to recommend.
Okay.
Commissioners, just to be sure, we are making a recommendation to approve Resolution 21-12, and you would like to change the condition for 5 years to 10.
Okay, and I was going to add to that, we didn't get any protests on this,
No, we
correct?
did not.
Okay, because I was going to bring that up in another session. I know we've been changing these to 10 years, but I was thinking unless we got several protests, maybe we'll leave them at 5. But if we have no protests and they've got a significant investment, then I was going to move that we approve Resolution 2021-12, Polhemus Mechanic Permit for SUP for 10 years.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any more discussion on it? If not, Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 We're set to go. Thank you.
I will
Thank you.
amend that resolution and get it back over to Becky.
Thank you, Crystal.
All right, Commissioners, I have before you Resolution 2021-13, which is a request for Mortzoff, which is a repair facility. Mr. Mortzoff is located on a dead-end street in the northern portion of the county. Mr. Mortzoff essentially works on boats, works on trucks, and also does some home repair. He does store materials at his property. The county staff has been working with Mr. Mortzoff on cleaning up his property to make it a little more appealing to some of his neighbors. It was a little disarray there for a while. I think the special use permit request that he has is a little bit confusing because it seems like he's asking for several special use permits. He's really not. He doesn't do any of these things full time. He does store a few boats at the property, like I said, that he works on. He doesn't have any employees though, so he just is working on these things as he gets them. He does have a shop that he's able to store some materials in. He has agreed to continue storing materials within that shop. The Planning Commission voted 5-3 to recommend approval of this. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
What was the issues that apparently there were some members that had some issues?
Part of it was it seemed like Mr. Mortzoff was running several businesses, not just kind of the one, jack of all trades sort of thing. So one of our commissioners in particular felt that this was too many businesses at the property. Again, Mr. Mortzoff is the only employee, so it's not like he's got 60 hours a week devoted to the boats and 60 hours a week devoted to the construction, and it's just not like that. But I think there was some confusion.
I did not visit this site. I got to confess, I didn't make it yesterday. It's on my list to do. So.
Jeff, you have anything on this?
Yeah, I actually got several complaints on this property, so when I make the motion, I was going to leave it at 5 years. And I do see there is install an 8-foot wooden fence and maintain the fence in good working condition. And so I think it's worded to where basically what we want to see is something in the SUP conditions that say nothing will be visible from the right-of-way. So does the storing things behind the existing fence and then installing a new fence, is the verbiage in there so that would accomplish that?
Yeah, we can make a modification there, and yes, the purpose is that Mr. Mortzoff will make sure that the boats and the equipment are all stored behind the fence, which is something we did on a similar application recently.
And then there's a time frame involved on when they can bring stuff in and out.
Yes, 6:30 to 6 p.m.
Okay, and as long as those things are in there, I think that addresses all the complaints that I got.
And I think the 5-year, just in case this would grow, sometimes you'd be very successful in some of these operations. David, did you have something you wanted to say?
In addition to Commissioner Culberson's questions, which were the primary issues raised before the Planning Commission, it could be summed up into one word: appearance. The appearance of the property, some of the neighbors objected to. I think Mr. Moltzoff has taken that to heart. The terms of the special use permit more or less require that the property be kept in a condition so that it is not a public nuisance. No excessive junk debris, minimal view of any activities from the right-of-way or adjoining properties. And as long as those conditions are followed, Mr. Moltzoff will be within the special use permit. If they're not, I'm sure we will hear complaints and we would address them administratively first.
Exactly. I just wanted to make it a point that we're going to keep an eye on this, and it needs to improve from its existing status. And if it doesn't, then that's why we need the shorter SUP to keep monitor.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I make a motion, we approve special use permit resolution 2021-13 for Mortzoff laydown yard and repair service for 5 years.
Second. We have a motion second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Culberson?
Do you need to modify anything in there, Crystal?
He's had 5 years of it.
But I mean, as far
Yeah, it
as
has 5 years, and to
fence.
condition number 2 have added the existing fence and the required fence subject to condition number 14.
Okay.
So that it's clear that.
That'll work. Ready for a vote?
Yeah.
Aye.
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 I know we'll keep an eye on this, but these are ones that we just have to, just to make sure. I'm
Yep.
sure everything's going to be fine, but I think Jeff brought up some good points. So that's passed. Okay.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you.
Presentation, City of Lansing. Tim, you come forward, please. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and take off my mask just so everyone can understand me a little bit better. 521 Hillbrook Drive, Lansing, Kansas. Tim Vandal, City Administrator. I'm here today to talk a little bit about economic development in Lansing, where Lansing sees our growth area, and how we plan on getting there in the future. Over the last few years, we feel really positive about what's been going on in Lansing. In addition to the Quick Trip, we also have a car wash that's going to be opening very soon, and we anticipate Harbor Freight breaking ground in the next week or so. Further south, we anticipate seeing growth in the town center area, and we don't necessarily have a major retail anchor yet, but we're hopeful to get a couple of those smaller businesses kicked off to generate interest and traffic counts in the property. All of this new growth in Lansing creates new sales taxes and property taxes in Lansing, but also in Leavenworth County. A common theme for growth in Lansing, all of this growth is taking place right along that K7 corridor. The K7 Eisenhower intersection has, by our count, 32,000 vehicles per day, and it drops a little bit the further south you go. So Lansing sees growth and desirability among property on that K7 corridor as the key to future growth in Lansing, and that equates to commercial, residential, and perhaps industrial growth. Based on this and what we feel like is the potential for growth along that K7 corridor, in late 2020 we did a study that outlined what it would take to service sewer along properties along the K7 corridor all the way to McIntyre Avenue. That study was completed in February this year, and it was approved by the Lansing City Council a few months ago. The City Council is excited about this concept as sewer service predicates growth. We anticipate the engineering costs to be around $500,000. Based on existing projects that are already slated for design and construction, it's likely this project might not be designed until 2023 or 2024. But once designed, this project would make the sewer line shovel ready, and it would jumpstart the developability of properties in the area. A request was made for a partnership to design the line to promote growth, and that was voted down. Partially, it sounds like because we can't guarantee the property will be industrial. I understand and I respect those perspectives. I really do. I'm not here to throw stones or complain about anything, but I'm hopeful that all entities in Leavenworth County can begin thinking of ideas on ways we can create a return on investment for communities that especially don't have industrial sites. Lansing is willing to put up money to help facilitate economic growth, but we feel like growth is best accomplished when all parties can work together. Mainly, I just wanted to engage in a dialogue with you all to talk about ideas and ways we can help facilitate growth in Lansing and Leavenworth County, and if there are any opportunities for governments to work together to achieve common goals. I know taxpayers always get frustrated when government entities butt heads with each other, and I think they like it when we can all work together. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and if there's any questions that you guys have or anything you want to go over, I'm open to. But just wanted to engage in a dialogue with you all.
You know, when the vote, when it says voted down, that was voted down by the Port Authority, not this board.
Yeah.
And, you know, the sales tax on the ballot, it said the voters voted to improve McIntyre. So we've got McIntyre done. This is the next piece, I think.
I agree too. And the amount that you voted down was that the $240,538.
Correct, 240,000 and change. Yeah.
Okay. You know, we've been having meetings, the committee forums. I can just speak on this a minute. To work with LCDC, and we even have a Port Authority member there to see if there's any ground, because I think Leavenworth County is trying to be more of a tool to grow economic growth. And one of the things that even the LCD speakers they had at one of our meetings said, you know, when you do things like sewers and stuff like that, that's one of the key things, besides trying to retain them. So I think this is a thing. I personally, and very clear, past Lansing mayor, but I know this area that we've been trying to look at in growth, and this has a better turnaround time than some of the other investments, I think, that we may have done. Not that all aren't important, and Mike and I sit on that together, so we know that, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't authorize, and I'm not the $240,000, because basically it's here. Mark, is that correct? The funding is here?
Commissioners, that money would, I believe, if what you're identifying is the money that was left over on one of the other projects that the county took
From the
back.
Tonganoxie.
Right. So that, yes, there is money
It is
available
available
for this. I might also mention
the
that
other sewer line we paid to put in.
I might also mention that while this may be a few years out as far as a project goes, that could definitely speed up. I know that Lansing would be eligible for the new Recovery Act funds, and one of the items they've specifically identified is sewer improvements. So, I mean, this seems like it could play into that as well, and that would help them be ready for utilizing those funds.
Mike, go ahead.
Just a procedural question, and speak to the delay if this project would be. We don't want to delay it, but
Yeah.
if this board would have a conversation here today, and we wanted to, because we're trying to use the Port Authority as our conduit to vet these things, but if we kind of indicated here today that we want that approved and ask that it go back to the Port Authority for reconsideration, would that delay your do we have time to do that without?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that'd be reasonable too. If there was something right there that wanted to break ground tomorrow, I would say no, but I know it's something that we view for the long-term future of Lansing. So I think that'd be reasonable if that's what the board decided to do.
I understand what you're saying, Mike, but I think the city of Lansing followed the procedures that were set in place. They went to the Port Authority. The Port Authority held it for 30 days, then tabled it, never came back, and this is no insults, and maybe there's some confusion, never came back to the county to say, is this what you want us to do with the funding? And it's very obvious. So the next step on that is for that city, which happens to be Lansing, to come before this board and ask for the funding. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't okay that funding today, and we can speak with the Port Authority on, or maybe that'll we'll have a conversation with them on things that we need to look at down the line.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I agree basically, but I do think we need to have a conduit to get like communication between the Port Authority and this board, because I think that was part of the breakdown here. And
I had it between my board member that's on there, Vernon Fields, and he voted to give the money.
We had other members that voted against it too. David, you have something on this?
Commissioner Stephen brings up a very valid point, and that is procedurally, when a proposal is brought before the taxpayers via their elected officials for economic development, how does it proceed? The current mechanism is it is brought forward either through LCDC or the Port Authority or this body and deliberated upon and then acted upon. In this case, the initial deliberation was from the Port Authority. They're an advisory body to this board. The Port Authority is not intended to, nor does I believe it claim to be the dispositive deciding body. They have considered the matter and forwarded a recommendation to you. If that recommendation were to be final, it wouldn't come to you. It would have been made by the Port Authority. The whole purpose is to have several bodies consider a proposal. So procedurally, to refer it back to the Port Authority, asking them to reverse their prior decision, basically doesn't really accomplish the goal. The goal is to put eyes on the project. Their eyes have looked at the project and they've made their recommendation. But you are the final deciding body, and I think it's entirely appropriate for this body to make a decision today if you would choose to do so. You could refer it back to the Port Authority, but in essence you're asking them to just reverse their own decision, which may be appropriate in courts, but I think for elected bodies that's may just be grinding the wheels, as the saying goes.
Jeff, do you have anything on this?
Nope.
We just funded the Tonganoxie sewer line. This is pretty much, it's not, we're not funding the line, we're funding the design or partially. And $240,000 compared to how many millions? So, yes, sir.
Well, Commissioner Smith, you referenced that the East McIntyre Road improvement was put before the electors of Leavenworth County and was approved by, quite frankly, an overwhelming margin. This county committed 20% of the sales tax proceeds from the most recently approved countywide sales tax to economic development. This board has already expended in excess of $12 million on 2 industrial parks in the city of Leavenworth, city of Tonganoxie. In dealing with those parks, you've looked at infrastructure issues. You've looked at road access. You've looked at access to electrical, water, gas utilities, and finally, sewer facilities. If you look at the East McIntyre property, electrical service is already available. You have competing water supply services. You have road access. You have K7, US 73 highway. You've just spent several millions of dollars improving McIntyre Road. The missing component to make that entire corridor available for development is sewerage. So I would just put that forward for your consideration.
And Tonganoxie needs to be recognized for being good stewards of the money. They had $5 million. They developed their park for round three, a little over three.
Yep.
They were good stewards of their money. But also the agreement we had with Tonganoxie that they would pay for everything outside of the park. And we've changed that agreement and allowed them to use part of that money for the sewer. I mean, there's other cities in this county besides Tonganoxie that we need to participate in with, especially when it's matching.
I think this just exactly right, Doug. I think it just opens the door that we're trying to reach out to everybody, whether it be Eastern, Linwood, Tongi, Leavenworth, Basehor, Lansing, that everybody's got a stake in this, and that's the way we're going to look at it in the future. And I agree with you, Mike. We need to we need to send direction on the Port Authority on how we sit, and I think we're getting there through our other meeting. Really, Mike, I really do. But for this one right here, I don't see why any reason we'd want to hold this up. I know $240,000 seems like a drop in the bucket, but for some of the other things we've done in the county, it is a drop in the bucket. Mm-hmm. So if I could get a motion to approve that.
I would like to make a motion to approve expenditure of $240,538 to design future sewer line along K7 corridor to McIntyre intersection for City of Lansing.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Any more comment on this?
Just the one comment I would make is that we, for the folks that are on the Port Authority and the LCDC, we do value their input and we want to streamline the process.
And I think, Mike, since we sit on that committee, that's what we're doing.
Right.
But at this time, this is one that we just need to. It's already been through the process that's set up in place now. What we're talking about doing in the future in the meetings we're having is how to, like you said, streamline it or go different directions depending on what the committee wants to do. So I appreciate that. With that being said, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Tim? Thanks you and Kim for showing up. If you would get with Mark on that, on what he'll need from you. Yeah, okay.
Yep. We can
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Ken, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while.
Over a year.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken. Okay, Mark, did we have anything else on that before we go to public comment? Okay. Yes, sir. Additional public comment, we have Mr. Maxwell here.
Yes.
Sam, come on up. How you doing, sir?
I'm here. Let's put that.
Okay.
About 3 months ago, I called my commissioner, Mr. Culberson, and complained about my 911 service at the shop. Seems it's a dead spot. He informed me that, well, he'd look into it. He looked into it, called me back, and said, well, nothing we can do. Luckily, we go to Platte City, and Platte City then returns to Leavenworth with the concern. I don't think that's quite right. Your communication system, I know you have dead spots in this county all over the place. There's got to be a way in this day and age to eliminate that problem. And I talked to him about that, and he said no. And I think that's just wrong. What I would do if I were you is possibly get my provider for 911 in here and question them as to what they can do. There's got to be something out there you can do. You can't leave dead spots in this county. Point being, I've had 5 accidents out there on top of that hill the last 2 years. And serious accidents. I called, and I didn't know this. I had a person come into the property, and I thought, well, I got to make a report for the county. So I called the sheriff's department. I get to Platte City. I told them what I was looking for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She said, well, you do know this is Platte City. How the hell did I get Platte City? She said, well, this is how it does. So I said, okay, can you put me to Leavenworth? So she put me to Leavenworth Police Department. Police Department said, well, this is the police department. I said, I don't want the police department, I want the sheriff's department. She finally got me to the sheriff's department. And I told the sheriff's department, not a big deal, not a 911 situation. I just need to make a report. They sent the deputy out, and he says, well, it's always that way out here. It never happens any other way. My point being was, I was on my cell phone. I'm 15 minutes into this call, and it's not an emergency. And if people don't know that they're talking to Platte City, it's kind of like precious time is being lost for somebody out there that's hurt bad. And I just had one a week ago. Young man was coming up the highway and
What's your address?
on the hill.
What's your address? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
16211 Santa Fe Trail,
Right on top of the hill.
right over the top of the hill.
Okay.
And that young man was coming up that hill. I could just tell he was stealing his O's. Because you hear that little thing wind up at the bottom of the hill, come up the bottom of the hill, and all I saw was pieces and parts flying. Wow. So I called 911, knowing that I was going to get Platte City. I was not very nice, probably. I said, hey, send me to Leavenworth. And then Leavenworth Sheriff's Department. And I got Leavenworth Sheriff's Department. But I knew to ask them that.
Okay. Mark, is anything you want to add to that? We have dead spots. I know years ago you already did the communications and things like that, but is there always going to be dead spots, or what's I'm not familiar with that.
But I think that Commissioner Culbertson probably has more knowledge on it than most
yeah,
because of his
That's what he
relationship.
told me, too.
When he helped build the 911 system in Leavenworth County.
Okay.
So he's very accurate in what he said. It's not necessarily a dead spot. It's that it relays through a tower that is across the Missouri River, and that tower then relays to the 911 closest to it in Missouri.
Exactly.
So,
and Sam, I don't know if you remember, I didn't tell you there wasn't anything we could do. I said that you have two options. You can either put in a landline,
Which I've got.
and that'll go straight to Leavenworth 911. You have a landline?
Well, yeah, obviously, I'm a shop. I'm a company.
Okay, I thought you
But
told
I'm
me.
in the middle of the parking lot,
Uh-huh.
and I have a heart attack.
Right.
Too bad, so sad, because I want to get my phone out, dial 911, and I can hardly talk to them. I'm here.
So your landline goes straight to Leavenworth County 911?
Probably.
It does. I checked. If you want your cell phone to work right, there's an option. We have to put in another tower right there in your parking lot. And,
Oh, that's fine. I don't care.
well, I understand that, but the cost.
No,
it's
that
kinda
costs you money, and your provider should handle this. Your provider provided that Leavenworth County would be a 911. They didn't say, okay, by the way, there are going to be dead spots if people are going to die out there. That's my point.
Well, if you're driving down the road and you've been on a cell phone call, have you ever lost the call where it drops
Certainly
out?
I have.
So that's a dead spot. So we can put in a tower in every one of those dead spots. But where we're at,
Well, that's your decision. I'm just telling you, there's dead spots in this county that are causing people to have
Okay.
possibly a death.
the only way to fix that is to put a
So
tower.
there you go. You guys can talk about it and make a decision.
Okay, Ms. Baxter, we get 5 minutes on that. We appreciate that. We will have conversation on that. I didn't realize there were dead spots. I know they come and go in some places, but we'll have a conversation about that.
That's what
Okay?
I want to clear up.
Okay, thank you for coming out, sir.
Have a good one. Let's see.
How big area are we talking?
Sir?
Up.
Oh.
It's
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam. I was with Jeff.
probably that one parcel in this particular case.
Right.
But as far as dead
Because it's right on
spots,
top of the hill.
he's just
the
over
tower.
the hill is the problem. The hill
catches that, yeah.
is actually blocking him from the tower that
Okay.
would tie to 911. But he does have line of sight to the Platte County
Uh-huh.
tower, so that's the one that picks him up. He's not unique. There are hundreds of dead spots in the county. So until we get more towers, you're going to have dead spots.
And most counties have that stuff too, Jeff.
Yeah, everywhere.
AT&T has added some towers.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about dead spots, just go west, Jefferson County.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You don't have to go very far if you want to see a lot of dead spots. So until we get a lot more towers, you're
those
gonna
are
have
true
dead
dead spots. There's no coverage whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is not a dead spot. It's just a matter of
And knowing who to call.
You know, even, and I'll tell you that this is a very rural area, but driving on I-70 through Kansas City, Kansas, out towards Bonner Springs, when you call 911, it will pick up whatever tower you're nearest, and it will put you to that dispatch. But Kansas City, Kansas does not dispatch on I-70. The Kansas Highway Patrol does. And it's not the Kansas Highway Patrol, it's the Kansas Turnpike Authority. So you will get, I've had to make a call on I-70. I don't think we could consider that rural at all. I placed a call as I was coming across the Kansas-Missouri border, and by the time I got to Bonner Springs and pulled off, they finally got me to the Kansas Turnpike Authority. So it happens.
Yeah, Mark, one of the things too, though, I think it's one of the things that he did say it's important is you need to know who you're asking for.
Yeah.
If it's going over to Platte City, something like that, you need to be asking, I need the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Department. So, I don't know, it's an information thing, but stuff like that. But I know of a lot of counties that, and I've just already said it, that you're going to have dead spots. As time goes by, technology will get better, and we'll be able to think that right now there will be some dead spots.
And when we started the 911 system, working with the triangulation of the
I
cell
remember
towers,
that,
there are still some areas in the county. Mr. Maxwell is fortunate that he has two options. He has his landline, which is tied right to Leavenworth County 911, and then he also has the Platte County cell tower that does pick him up. We still have areas in the county that don't get any cell service to 911 at all. It's just
And we knew
the way it
that,
is.
and we knew that because I was on the committee when we started 9/11 years ago when I was the police chief. We knew there were going to be some things, but I still think it's improved. And as time goes by, it'll continue to improve. But you make a valid point there, Jeff.
And then this started in, 1990?
Yeah, 92.
Yeah, 92. Well, I was here. Yesterday, I was here 39 years. That was my anniversary. But I remember going out, putting all the street signs up.
Still walking, talking.
And still walking and talking. I'm not walking real good. But anyway, I remember when we did all that, and it has evolved
Yeah.
a lot better since we started.
The more towers that go up, the less dead spots we'll have. But it's just going to take a while.
And we weren't really worried about cell phones back in 1992.
Yeah.
It was landlines.
Exactly. Make sure we had enough of those.
So at least we do have street signs, and people can say, instead of by the large oak tree, by the red barns where I'm at. Stuff
That used to be the directions.
Yeah.
I remember it.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Any more on that? Or okay, Mark, did you have anything else for the group?
No, sir.
Jeff, did you have anything?
Nope.
I do not.
What do we got going on this week? Oh, I toured Lansing yesterday. And I had Basehor City Council last week. That's about it. We got anything coming up? Oh, anybody going? I see we're going to have a conference in Liberal, Kansas.
I know, it's in Liberal.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's six. It's way out there. 6
Commissioner,
hours.
Seward County is one of the more scenic counties in this state. You should relish the opportunity to go there.
I just, as a police chief, I see classes out there. Thank you, David. That was a nice try. Go ahead.
Okay.
But it is.
Looks like it's in-person conference. So
I'm glad to hear that, too.
I am too.
It's in July.
June
June.
8th through the 10th.
Yeah. Day and a half.
Train run.
Be on
out that way.
vacation. Be on vacation.
Yeah, they're good.
It's
to
a
go
long
to.
ways out
Vacation
there,
out there.
but these conferences are always really good.
Yes, they are.
They're very beneficial, and it's just.
You got some time.
I wish it was in the middle of the.
That's
state.
what I was hoping when I saw that.
If you could have it at Salina or
Hayes
or something like that, that's
Yeah.
it's just.
That's a long.
But
It's what it
it
is.
is what it is.
Anything
That's
else?
all I have.
Okay. Mike?
Just a heads up, I met with Major Shirley and representatives from the Brew to Brew Run, and they are going to make a proposal to the sheriff, and then he's going to offer up his recommendation. So that will be coming before the board at some point. That was a run we had some issues
What
with
month?
last
What
time.
month will that take place?
They're proposing that it take place in September.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe
So we got
September.
plenty of time.
Out of the way, yeah.
But this,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I told them it was totally, I felt like going to be based on a recommendation from the sheriff's department. If they're,
How about the railroad? Didn't the train get stopped that last
well,
run?
they're not going to
gonna ask the railroad what they
They're not going
think.
to go through Linwood, supposedly.
Well, they're going to cross tracks somewhere.
And I will say that I spoke to the folks from Linwood, and they still recommended that the run not come through the town. They want to give it a year to see how it goes.
Are they going to notify the railroad or ask for their blessing or?
I'm going to let the sheriff handle all that.
All right. FAA? They do anything to
I
airplanes?
don't know about the
Just,
FAA.
just railroad? Okay.
Linwood International.
He's just getting. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I talked to Dan Tallman, and I had a very good report on their meeting. They're having discussions about possible fire district, and I said things are going well down in the township. So I thought that was good, and that's all.
Mike, do you think, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it, I would have brought it up, I was going to give you the opportunity. You think we're down to about a meeting or two that we're sitting on as far as the committee we formed to review some things in economic with the LCDC? I think the last direction was give us.
Yeah, I think we're getting close, and then they'll bring, a proposal in front of this board.
That's what I want to say.
And I guess we'll probably have a work session. Is that what the plan is?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to let the other board members know we're getting there, and we've had some good heated discussions.
And you have meetings every couple of weeks? Or
every
month?
second Thursday.
Every second
I'm sorry, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks,
Yep.
okay.
We just had a good one down Tongi. Glad to see some of that, what that funding went through, the COVID-19 funding down Tonganoxie. I was impressed with that building we got to speak in. So cities are growing. I'm just pleased to see all of it, along with the county.
They've done a good job with the old library.
Yeah.
Have you been in that building?
The one with the
really-
library.
You should see it now.
It's really nice.
Yeah. Just like everybody else, the entire county is growing. We just got to make sure we're going the right direction. Anybody else have anything else?
Just wish we'd done ribbon cuttings on big businesses in the cities like we have SUPs
Yeah.
out in the county.
Yeah.
I think we've got to recognize these SUPs are very important.
We might have to think about doing something. And they are important. I didn't realize how many we had. Being in the county until I saw the.
And the need for them is
Yeah.
just like the shops we approved today. People out in the county want to use these facilities.
And I'm starting to see, too, I'm starting to understand better the 5-year and 10-year. I think those things that some of the rules have been put in place are going to make it better for these places, to make it harder for them. Because as county commissioners, folks, I can tell you, and I'm not speaking out of line, we want to grow the county. We want to do it in a controlled way.
Right.
And I think we're doing, what I see from the other county commissioners, I've been very, very pleased. So,
And they can have their permit pulled at any time,
That's right.
violating any of the conditions.
that's right.
So
That's why I was glad to see that 5-year on that one. Let's keep an eye on that. That's why we're telling Crystal.
to me, in 10 years, they seem to invest more money in their business and facilities, and then we seem to tax it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, if there's nothing else, I take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn.
Aye.
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 Aye.